Alright, today we're going to take a look at a high mileage lock. This is a German KFV brand that was sent to me from the Netherlands by Remco Meeder. He said he took these off of his doors and he replaced them with some better locks, some Janus 46s, and he no longer had a use for these. So I'm going to go ahead and try to pick this today, but before I do that, I'm also going to give it away at the end. And the way I've decided to do that is there are now 143 supporters of LockTube, and each of them is represented by a small slip of paper with their name on the inside of this envelope. At the end, I'm going to draw a name out of the envelope, and we're going to give that lock away. Before I do that, I'm going to give a shout out to the people that the most recent contributors that have just come in the last 48 hours. Justin Laflame, Stefan Hesberger, Dave Helgert, Stephen Powers, Christopher Mendez, Thomas Telenius, Peter Funstein, Andrew Waldorf, Andrew Newell, Glenn White, Jill Gower, Thomas Wills, Mark Pauley, Arnold Furia, Stephen Crooks, Gary Snyder, Aram Emre Baran, Samuel Adams, Zachary Lawn, Brian Dunnenberg, Toby Palmer, Dominique Hobbs, Tob Harrison, Addy FTW is the username, Stephen Martin, Jacob Garner, Ate Kukinkunen, Aaron Herseen, Michael Wolf, Stephen Hind, Zachary Muncrief, Peter Buero, Simon Dalzell, William Henley, Thomas Corbett, Chris Aeo, Chris, Tyler, Matt Alpha, and Adam Smith. All those names I've just added to the container here, and we're going to get to them. But before we draw one, we first have to pick it. It's a nice looking lock. There is no spine reinforcement, so I think it's probably a mid-grade lock. I do have a key. It's taped to the side, but hopefully we won't be needing that. So let's go ahead and clamp this baby up and get it picked. Let me find that vise. Well, before we get started on this thing, let's talk a little bit how to tension some of these locks. This is fairly typical of a European style lock. It's actually called the Yale style keyway. It's not necessarily a Yale, but because it's got that little curve on the top, it makes it kind of uniquely paracentric or curvy. So you can see the pins in there, and that ought to tell you that we're going to have to pick probably from the right side, kind of angling up, levering off of that little shelf right there to push those pins. That also tells me that we're going to have bottom of the keyway tension. Now, because we know almost all European locks have security pins of some kind, it's probably good to have complete control of your core. For example, if you stick the normal tension wrench that we routinely use in there, you notice there's a lot of slop in that. No matter which way you go, left or right, it's kind of hard to control that core. So if you need to release it, say to let a T-pin up, you can't really do it very well with these. What you want to be able to do is control that core clockwise and counterclockwise. Now, one of the things you might consider doing is getting some, it's called music wires. Not truly music wire, but that's what they call it on eBay. And get some different sizes. It comes in a pack of like 6 different sizes. And then just get your grinder and grind down the tips. Just use a torch, bend them over, grind them down to different sizes. And taper them so they'll fit a wide variety of different keyways. And then what you'll find, I've already picked this one out, when you slide it in there, you literally, because it's tapered, it'll wedge in there. Let me just push that in with my thumb. And now, oops, I got that crooked. Okay, now what happens, no matter which way it wants to go, I have complete control of that core. So if I need to release tension for a serrated pin or spool or mushroom, I can easily do it without losing the entire stack of pins that I've already picked. All right, now that we've talked about that, let's talk about another technique. Like I said, we know these contain security pins. Almost all European locks do. I just don't know what kind. So what we hope for is just take a rake, and this is an 18 thousandths Bogota. We're going to slide it in there, apply light tension, and I'm 99% sure no European lock will open like this. But what you'll notice is that I just got what's called a fault set. Let me turn that. Normally your keyway is oriented perfectly vertical. Now this one's offset. It's hung up on something, but it's not open. Well, It's hung up on one of those security pins. It could, at this point, it could be a T-pin, or it could be a mushroom, or possibly a spool. I don't know which. Well, let's go find out. I'm going to take a short hook, and the reason I chose a short hook is because nothing larger will fit into these keyways. If I could get a full hook in there, a deep hook, I would do it, but it just can't fit. So slide it in, and now what I'm doing is looking for the lock to tell me something. I want him to tell me which pin needs to be picked, and he'll usually do that by giving some kind of reaction. And the reaction you'll see here, I'm on pin 2, and you notice I'm getting a little bit of feedback through my tension wrench. He's kind of bouncing. That tells me this is either a mushroom pin or a spool. So let's get him set without bending my pick, I hope. Okay, he's not quite going there, so now comes the advantage of this tension wrench. I can actually release the tension on the core, but not too far. I really don't want to lose that fault set unless I have to, and I'm going to jiggle that pick back and forth, trying to work that spool up into the cylinder, which it feels like I just did, but now I've lost my fault set. Now it's back almost perfectly vertical. That tells me one of the pins I had picked earlier with the rake has now fallen. It also tells me he's a standard pin, so I'm going to apply heavy tension, work my way to the back, and then I'm going to find the binding pin and give him a little nudge and get my fault set back. Okay, I felt it click back there. Let's do it again. Didn't quite get somebody. Okay, I've still got a partial fault set. Looking for a binder. Another way you could attack it at this point, and if I don't get him pretty quick I'll do that, you pull your rake out again, because you know he's a standard pin, and rakes work really good on standard pins. Alright, I may just have to do that because I've got 3 pins that are partially bound. I'm trying to bounce on them one at a time, just to give me that deep fault setback. Come on, baby. Alright, let's pull out the rake. We know we got that spool beat. Now let's just try to get that standard pin back in his hole. And there we go, we got him back. Now let's find out who the next binder is. Okay, that was pin 4. I got a slight click, so that was probably a T-pin. Just barely hanging up in the shear line. Okay, I'm on pin 3 and I'm getting this counter rotation thing again. So let's get him home. Alright, and we lost our fault set. We're back on a standard pin. Let's see if we can do it manually this time. Get in there, you devil. And there we go. Alright, they're not easy locks. That's what everybody loves about European locks. They are chock full of security pins. You need every advantage that you can come up with. And these tight little tension wrenches made out of music wire, they cost almost nothing, are just a great little trick. That and recognizing what kind of pins you're dealing with. Alright, so what I'm going to do, because this is kind of a neat lock, I'm actually going to cut them in half. I'm going to cut them in half. I do have a key. You'll see what the key looks like. Wow, that doesn't look difficult at all, except the one low cutter you have to work around. But it doesn't matter. If you just pay attention to what the lock says, the way he talks back to you, you'll be able to get him open. Alright, what I'm going to do now, turn him around correctly, he does work. I'm going to cut him in half. I'm going to show everybody what's inside of this lock, and then I'm going to reassemble it, and then I'm actually going to pull 2 names out of the envelope. So let me pull those 2 out right now and see who's going to get these. I'm going to turn the envelope sideways, shake it up, and zoom out, so maybe, oops, oh, there we go. We got 2 names. Alright, Joachim Franch and Timothy Baliski. You're each going to get a half of this lock. I will mail it to you, but let's cut it in half and everybody can see what's in this thing. Alright, that wasn't too bad actually. That metal's pretty soft. I suspect that would have been susceptible to snapping. Anyway, they have these copper discs here, or rings, to permanently seal them in place. Let's just grab one. I'm going to have to cut it to get past it, I think. And we can replace it with a C-clip. And that should just now very easily pop off. There we go. And the key. Excellent. And we'll just grab a follower and slide it through there. Let's grab the right end though. Turn this down just a little bit. Okay, I'm seeing only 5 pins. The first one is a steel pin to prevent drilling. Must be a fairly inexpensive lock, because if you take a look, the 2 holes that are drilled there to put the carbide, the anti-drill carbide pieces, are not there. And also the holes where there are supposed to be steel ball bearings, again, counter drill measures, are also empty. So I'd have to say this is not even a mid-grade lock. Alright, so let's take a look and see what we got in it anyway. It was kind of fun to pick. We got a standard. We got another standard. There's a lot of grit inside of this thing. Another standard. Man, these are really nasty. It doesn't even want to come out of there. That's how dirty this lock is. Another standard. Wow. And another standard. Nasty, nasty. Nothing special about the core. No counter milling, no threading, no nothing. They just popped this thing in there and sold it. Alright. Let's find the magic. Okay, we're looking at a steel, this is very standard, a steel driver on the first hole. Again, counter drilling measure. Get that out of there. Nice looking spring. Next one is a very nice looking spool. Next one, number 3, standard. Another nice looking spool. And the last one, a standard. That wasn't too impressive, but I have to tell you, a lot of times these European lock spools are designed to make you drop all the pins that you previously picked. And I think you saw that happen to me twice when I picked pin number 2. Working that very deep spool around that ledge, very tight tolerance lock, if they pin it correctly, all the other pins will drop when you try to pick him. That's why I was wallowing that pin back and forth, trying to force him up inside of that cylinder. Just a little trick. If you pick enough of these, you'll figure that out. Now you don't have to. I'm just giving it to you. Anyway, fellas, thanks for your time. Stay safe. Stay legal. Joachim Franch and Timothy Baliski. Be looking for half of this lock to arrive in your mailbox. Thanks, guys. Alright, you know I couldn't leave that alone, right? So don't tell these guys, but I crossbred a little bit of alien technology with some German technology, and when that happens, all kinds of weirdness pops out. So what I've done is replace the 2 standard driver pins with an ASSA barrel pin, and this very sharp, it's actually a spool out of ASSA locks. And if that isn't enough, remember pin 3, sharp edges. I threw in a little free threading, so that ought to keep those guys busy.